know that historically freer markets, and don't get me wrong, I understand that healthcare is not a commodity like sneakers, but freer markets lead to lower costs, and we can do this without creating a new entitlement. About a month and a half ago, I believe it's Oxfam, whose research came out that indicated that the 8 wealthiest individuals on the planet Earth controlled as much wealth combined as the bottom 50th percentile. That is 8 people plus 3.6 billion people had as much wealth as 3.6 billion people. Now, to put the United States' current debt, not unfunded liability, in perspective, imagine, if you will, that we could extract every dime from the entire 50th percentile and down of wealth and the 8 wealthiest people on the planet, and then apply that to the United States' current standing debt, not unfunded liability, current standing debt. What percentage of our debt do you think that would pay off? Folks, it would pay off under 10%. We hear the use of the word unsustainable again and again and again in this town, and some things really are, and new entitlement programs and spending on top of profligate spending truly is, and we can curve the cost curve downward and do so without further encumbering future generations, and it's as simple as that. So I've heard people characterize this as a lot of people playing a lot of games of chicken. We're resolute, and we'll stand here, and we'll do what's right, not just for today, but for posterity. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, we'll take some questions.
Mr. John Parkinson, ABC, go ahead.
Thank you. I heard you guys using the optimism ahead that the president will negotiate with you, but today he had a tweet that said that he termed this as a wonderful bill. Do any of you want to use that term, wonderful? And if so, what parts of the bill do you think are wonderful?
No, and there are some improvements in the legislation from the leaked draft, but there was a wonderful bill that every single Republican voted on just a few months back. And tomorrow, Senator Paul and myself will be introducing that same piece of legislation. And that is exactly, as I said earlier, consistent with what we told the American people we were going to do. Repeal Obamacare. How about using the bill we all supported and then replace it with something that we actually believe is going to lower health care costs?
Mr. Jordan, can you talk for a minute to Mr. Jordan and Mr. Meadows here about, you said, Mr. Meadows, that you met with the Vice President. He said, he's open to negotiation here. The Vice President was over in the Senate. He said, this is the bill. When I hear all of you talk, it sounds like you were trying to get somewhere where you can support a legislative product here at the end of the day. But as you just alluded to, Mr. Jordan, you said, and Mr. Garrett said this, they wrote this in the dead of night, so on and so forth. And so why would you trust them?
Yeah, well, Chad, of course we're trying to get somewhere to repeal Obamacare. We know what a disaster this has been for the American people. The American people spoke loudly and clearly on November 8th, so of course we're trying to get to that point. But I think Mr. Garrett's comments were right on target. Doing it right's important. Not just doing it right. And that's what today's about. That's why we're going to introduce our legislation tomorrow. That's why we think the 2 pieces of legislation, that mode of getting it done is the proper way to proceed. And that's why we're introducing the bill tomorrow and why we had our bill that we introduced 3 weeks before.
You trust actually what the Vice President said, even though he said on the Senate side earlier, this is the bill.
Yeah, the Vice President is an honorable man, and we trust him. I think there's some difference in the context of what's being said. I think the President and the Vice President is saying that the foundation there is a good foundation. We might disagree on that. However, we're committed to looking at that foundation and seeing how we can modify it, how we can make sure that we look at really repealing fully and replacing the Affordable Care Act in a meaningful way that drives down premiums. And so I don't know that those are mutually exclusive issues as we look at that.
Ben Jacobs, go ahead.
Ben Jacobs. In terms of the current House bill, is that a significant enough improvement over the status quo that you prefer that to the status quo? And if it came down to picking between the two, which one would you choose?
Well,
go ahead.
Look, did we promise the American people we were going to repeal Obamacare but keep some of the Obamacare taxes? Did we promise the American people we were going to repeal Obamacare but keep and expand the Medicaid expansion? And did we promise the American people we were going to repeal Obamacare but we're going to start a new entitlement with the fancy name of advanceable refundable tax credits? I don't think we did. I don't think any Republican ran on that platform. So to me, this is pretty darn simple. And that's why our plan makes sense. Repeal it, and replace it with something that's actually going to lower cost.
But if your plan can't pass, would you rather support the
We've just started the debate. You know, the vice president said, let's negotiate, let's debate, let's let it happen. So let's let that process play. That's how the legislative process works. I think the American people might want to weigh in. They don't want to rush this thing. They just got to see it today as well. So let's let the debate unfold, and we'll see what happens here in a few weeks.
And if I could add something, we know what passed 2 years ago. That should have been the starting point, because we're stronger with the president behind what we're trying to do. So we shouldn't be going backwards from the bill that we passed 2 years ago. So yeah, we're going to make this better. We ought to at least get to where we were 2 years ago.
Are you all prepared to vote against
right
the
here,
current
right
bill?
here.
To be clear, all of the members present will vote against the Brady-Walden bill as written, and the follow-up is the Paul Jordan bill. Will it have provisions to prevent illegal aliens from participating?
You know, we haven't made any formal positions on the House Freedom Caucus. We're meeting tonight. That will be part of our discussion as we look at this new bill. Obviously, we have some serious concerns. We haven't been shy about the serious concerns as we look at that. And yet, with any negotiation, you look at the trade-offs, what are the risks versus the rewards. And as we do that, we intend to have a robust debate among 35 to 40 of us this evening.
Congressman, it seems that you guys are proposing two different things. On the one hand, Mr. Jordan says repeal Obamacare, and then we'll figure out sort of what to do next. But you seem to think that there are changes that could be made to this current piece of legislation.
Well, I mean, I don't know that they're mutually exclusive. What we're here today, Dr. Rand Paul came 8 weeks ago and said, really what we need to look at is finish the debate on repeal. We need to go ahead and get that done. The same day, he suggested that we have a vote on a replacement vote, understanding the hurdles, the logistical hurdles that you might have. But we've got a number of vehicles. This is not just the first reconciliation bill we have. We actually have two more coming in any phased-in period on a repeal. We've got the one that comes right behind this. We have the one that we'll be voting on again next fall. And so as you look at that, there are a number of vehicles. If we're truly looking at reconciliation as the vehicle, there are a number of things to do that. But we need to have a sincere debate, go ahead and repeal it, as Dr. Rand Paul said, vote the same day, and at the same time not dismiss any merits of a bill that's been put out there. I applaud the leadership for putting out a bill. We now can discuss the merits.
Sir Paul, can I ask you to respond to that? You did say several weeks ago that you want to see the bill repeal and replace at the same time. Can you explain the evolution you're thinking?
What I would say is there is a great deal of evidence that this is the beginning of the negotiation. And what I would put forward as that evidence is half a dozen members from the Freedom Caucus, half a dozen conservative members of the Senate have been contacted by the White House, been contacted by Tom Price, and are in discussions with the Vice President. So this is the beginning of the process. The way the process moves forwards is they will count heads. If they have 218 votes for what they put forward, that is what you'll get. So the House Freedom Caucus's power and the power of several conservatives in the Senate is to withhold our support and make it better. If they have 218 votes, we won't get any change. That will be the bill. If they don't have 218 votes, there will be a negotiation and conservatives will have a seat at the table. The House Freedom Caucus has enormous power if they stay together. So do the conservatives in the Senate. And it is unknown what the product will be, but I promise you the White House, the cabinet, and everybody else assumes there's going to be a negotiation, or they wouldn't be making all these phone calls and arranging all these appointments with conservatives in the House and Senate, and that's the way it should be. Conservatives want a seat at the table, and we want to repeal Obamacare. Every one of us want to. I still think the most practical way is to separate them, but if they were to remove the objectionable items from their repeal and replace, it would essentially be repeal. So we really are talking about the same thing.
Senator, last question over here. Go ahead.
You're talking about how you should first focus on just repealing as much as you can. Weren't you saying earlier in the year, though, that Republicans have to be very careful about doing repeal without a replacement in hand?
I'm still saying exactly the same thing. We should do repeal and replace at the same time, just not in the same legislative vehicle. And the reason is I still would. If the replacement bill that we put forward that has no new government programs, if they would allow that to be part of the repeal effort, I'm for that. So I'm for bringing replacement into the repeal package if it's good stuff. If it's Obamacare light, it makes it worse, and that divides us. I think what's been put forward right currently divides us, whereas I think there are some issues. Expanding health savings account. I'm guessing almost every Republican in Congress is for that. Put that in the replacement and repeal together, and we'll vote for it. You know, put health care associations. Get rid of some more of the regulatory part of Obamacare. We're all for that. But if you have a new entitlement program, Obamacare taxes, subsidies for insurance companies, it is going to divide us. So that's part of what we're here today, is to present that there is a way forward, but the current way forward I don't think is going to work.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sergio? Curious for more detail how this is different from the National Health Service and what it means for